adoption among families after managing to evacuate them from those places. What a machine, right? Well, yeah, that's true, sir.
Goosebumps. Well, just so you know, in Spain, we also have heroes rescuing animals. Like the next case that this brings us.
Come on, let's go see you. Here. I'm going to introduce you to Alberto Delobos, the head of the wolf shelter in Albacete, where they rescue abandoned dogs and rehabilitate them until they recover. And sometimes they can find a home. And not only that, but Alberto is also an expert in canine neurobiology and helps humans and dogs understand each other a little better. That's great.
Of course, Alberto does an amazing job, but he also found a way to come here, and he didn't come alone. Maria Victor come with me. How exciting. Let's see. How's it going? How's it going, Alberto? Well, how are you? Come on, stand like this so we can see you well. Well, welcome, Alberto, and welcome to Blanca as well. This is Blanca, right? This is Blanca. You were telling me a bit about her story. Terrible, right? It's unfortunately terrible and very common in Spain. Did you find her weighing, you said, 17 kilos, 17, 18 kilos, that these dogs should weigh? They're around 40. 40, can you imagine? Of course. Let's see, Alberto, your last name is Delobos. And I don't know if you were a bit destined for this life to be among canines, right? Because you also told me that the thing about wolves is literal, that you have dogs, wolf, but some are more wolf than dog.
Exactly, we have a shelter, my partner and I, and my wife and I have a shelter in Albacete. And right now we have over 70 dogs. We have more than 23, 24 wolf dogs. Rescued with issues, people who couldn't handle them or abandoned. And we focus on rescue, we focus on rehabilitation and recovery. We also try to close the loop by looking for people to adopt if possible.
What's a typical day like? What do you do to rescue dogs in such extreme circumstances like these?
It's a bit like Ghostbusters. At a certain moment, an alarm goes off in a warning. Like, for example, with Blanca, who's in a pen or in a fenced area, abandoned, malnourished with leishmania. Deaf as well. We must rescue and care for 70 dogs at the shelter, focusing on their well-being. This involves ensuring they get enough exercise, socializing, and preparing for adoption. If not adopted, they stay with us. It's a lot of work, right? They need to get out enough. They need to go out in a way that's optimal for their well-being too. They have to socialize with each other. They need to be prepared for a possible adoption. And if not, they stay at the shelter with us.
And that must be complicated, right?
Mess clean.
Integration, a lot of crap to clean up. In the mud. Yeah, basically.
Albacete with Blanca, who is doing a bit better now. But when she arrived about 3 weeks ago, how was she? How did you find her? We see her getting better, but well, there she is.
Totally malnourished. What I was telling you is that Blanca right now has very high levels of leishmania. It affected her liver and her kidneys. She's not out of the woods yet, and at any moment, she could have kidney failure, and that could end her life, so to speak. What was the moment of the rescue? Her life, so to speak.
What was the moment of the rescue? She was in a pen, but of course, that's private property. How do you get in there?
We're not at liberty to say everything we do, but we have different tools to put a little pressure on the owner who has those kinds of dogs, and we try to.
They tell you.
Basically, they gave her up. When you put pressure on a person who knows who has.
If he's surrounded by wolves.
Especially.
That's right.
But I can't escape that perfection either. So, yeah, we put a little pressure, always in a nice way and through the most civil channels we can find. And usually, they give up the dogs when the situation is just unbearable, no matter who's looking.
Did they tell you why they were letting her die?
Everyone has their reasons, and they are all. Yes, it is not a question of. I don't make it a point to judge, basically. The problem with dog training in Spain is that many people who should not have access to dogs do have access to dogs. Once a dog ends up in the hands of someone who shouldn't have it, things like this can happen. Of course.
It's amazing. In 3 weeks, the trust that Blanca has. We got close, now she's scared, she's deaf, but the level of trust you've built in just 3 weeks is incredible. Thank you. Of course, now she's gotten scared because she's deaf. But The level of trust you've built in just 3 weeks is incredible.
Thank you.
I mean, she came up to me since. Look at how she's looking at us. Thank you.
You, Alberto, you dedicate yourself to rescuing abandoned animals. One of the serious problems you can see from the outside, I don't know if you see it from the inside too, is that there are breeds that become trendy. And suddenly a bunch of people who weren't even thinking about getting a dog go out and buy that trendy dog almost like an accessory.
Exactly. The situation, the premise I was laying out for you earlier. There are people who shouldn't have access to the dog they want just because they've taken a fancy to a breed or just because they've fallen in love with a particular dog. What we do in our work is try to help people understand what animal welfare really means. Because welfare, for example, as defined by laws today, means having water, having a roof, and having food. And that's far from the reality of what animal welfare really is.
You can keep it tied up in a...
Those are the only needs to have a dog that you want to have one.
That's why it's really interesting that you also focus on the education and rehabilitation of dogs, as we mentioned, but more than just training, which I know is a word you hate, so let's skip that. It's about us humans too. Capable of understanding each other. That part of ethology is really beautiful, and the truth is, the work is on us.
You have to consider, it's not about the dog you want, it's about what you can offer the dog. And not everyone can offer the same thing to every dog. And thinking that all dogs are the same and have the same needs isn't necessarily true. There's a level of education and a level of skill. This is a skill like any other. It's like buying yourself a piano. Just because you buy a piano, the next day you're playing, like Michael Newman. So just having a dog, whether you bought one or adopted one, doesn't mean that the next day you know how to read dogs and provide them with welfare.
Always make informed decisions. You need to educate yourself before taking on the responsibility of a life, which is ultimately what we're doing.
What would be the specific case you're most proud of?
We've rehabilitated a ton of dogs that were in really tough situations. This past weekend, for example, we rescued a dog from a situation where it was at risk of being euthanized in a shelter and a dog pound in Barcelona, and right now it's being redirected to. In the year 2000, the President of the Republic, Juan Pablo Sanchez, and the President of the Republic, Juan Pablo Sanchez, a part of Jane in Granada, and we do a lot of work, but there are dogs like Brave from Barcelona who had a lot of aggression towards humans and other dogs, and nowadays, if I don't tell you who he was, you wouldn't know who he is, basically.
When did this hit you? Was it because of the last name? No. Am I going to dedicate myself to this?
No. Basically because there comes a moment in your life when you find you have more skill than others and the ability to communicate and express it. But your passion for dogs, since you were a kid, no, not necessarily. It has been learned. It has been learned. I didn't have dogs until I was in my early 30s. Yeah. So it's been a kind of fast-track learning journey where we've put all our skills, enthusiasm, passion, and abilities into understanding the well-being of dogs. And along that journey, we've found ourselves.
All right, so if someone wants to adopt one of these awesome dogs, completely rehabilitated, what do they need to do? Is just the intention enough? Not at all. Or do they have to meet a series of requirements, like you said? If someone comes to you and says, I want this dog because look, and they show you Taylor Swift's Instagram like it's the one she has, well, just keep liking her.
Border Collies are really trendy right now. Everyone is jumping on that bandwagon.
Fashions never come in handy as you are choosing more for the aesthetics than for the aesthetics of the animal.
It is always aesthetic. We try to break with that dynamic. If you wanted a dog from our shelter, you must contact us. We'll follow up to ensure the dog's well-being. That we see you have the right capabilities, and when you arrive at the shelter, I'll take care of giving you a sort of super quick crash course. And then we'll do follow-ups to make sure you're keeping the dog to the standards we've defined as well-being.
Blown away by the pictures. Yeah, exactly. The thing about wolves. Thank you.
Wolf dog.
They're wolf dogs, but I've been told that some of them have almost 90% wolf in them.
They are dogs with different levels of wolf content in their blood.
All right. Listen to me. And so, in this case, they're the ones setting the rules for you.
It's a matter of reading. It's about knowing how to read. Here I am. I don't believe in pack leaders. I don't believe in training for what I understand a dog needs. My job is to understand their well-being. That a dog needs. My job is to understand the dog's well-being at a neurobiological level and develop metrics to read and understand it externally. Dogs respond to their well-being, so it's not about knowing how to read. To their own well-being. So it's not really about knowing how to read, basically. It's a skill.
He's the Mowgli of the little guy.
My son is Mowgli. My son is growing up around 60 to 70 dogs and a lot of wolf dog. You can adopt too. Yeah, we'll talk about it outside. Well, we'll send you.
We'll send you to meet Alberto's shelter. Alberto, thank you for your visit, and we hope this helps lead to many adoptions. Victor, I don't know if you have anything else to add.
It's wonderful that he's doing such an amazing job because lifting a leishmania and treating it is tough work. But it's worth it for that.
Well, thank you very much, Alberto. And Victor, a big round of applause for this hero.